Roll call.
Fusco.
Aye.
Kamer. Aye. Connor. Baylor. Mosley.
Aye.
All members are present except for Councilwoman Baylor.
Okay, very good. I think she's logging in at this moment. I spoke to her. Okay, very good. I'd like to entertain a motion that we accept the minutes of the previously held meeting.
So moved.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? You guys have it. Very good. We will now, we have two items that are up for a public hearing this afternoon, as well as this evening. The procedure for this is we will first read in the proposed conditional use request. We will then get a report from the planning department. We will then ask for a representative of our law department to swear in anyone that wishes to testify. We'll then open up the public hearing and ask for testimony either in favor, against, or questions that may be asked. We'll then close the public hearing, open up questions to the committee members. After that, we'll then open it up to council members if there's any questions or comments. And then this evening at 7 o'clock, we'll repeat that process. And the only difference will be that we will then make a recommendation to all council, the committee, the planning committee, in terms of either in favor, against, or to table an item, take time. So those are the procedures that we'll follow today and this evening. And so with that, the first item that is up for public hearing is ordinance authorizing conditional use to expand a business at 745 East Archwood Avenue. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. RVR Realty and Investment is proposing to construct a 279 square foot storage addition onto the northeast corner of this building, along with a 400 square foot drive-through addition on the east side of the building. The site plan indicates 3 small parking spaces sandwiched between the proposed drive-through and Inman Street right-of-way. Furthermore, the site plan indicates that vehicles will enter the drive-through from the south and then make an immediate right turn on a paved drive in order to exit through an existing curb cut along Inman. The current Marathon gas station convenience store contains 4 gas islands underneath a canopy in front of the building, which faces East Archwood Avenue. An air pump island is also located between the curb cuts along Inman. There are currently 4 parking spaces along the west property line, with an additional 4 parking spaces located along the east side of the building. Objectives of the Land Use and Development Guide Plan include promoting good design standards for building, signage, and parking. The proposed drive-through extension will eliminate a handicap parking space, plus 3 additional parking spaces in the space between the addition and the Inman Street right-of-way. Only has enough space for either 1 handicapped or 2 regular parking spaces. Consequently, the proposed drive-through addition will decrease the number of available parking spaces. Further, the proposed traffic flow pattern for the proposed drive-through will create disruptions as well as safety concerns. Drive-through traffic would utilize either the eastmost curb cut along East Archwood or the 2 curb cuts along Inman Street. Consequently, pedestrian traffic would have to walk into the line of drive-through traffic to be able to access the store. Also, the line of vehicles waiting to enter the drive-through would disrupt the flow of traffic for vehicles entering and exiting gas pumps. The turn radius out of the drive-through is unworkable. To provide adequate and safe drive-through egress, the proposed drive would have to be widened and the curb cut shifted northward. In turn, a Metro bus stop that is currently placed to the north of the proposed curb cut for drive-through egress might have to be shifted. Planning staff's of the opinion that the proposed additions are an overdevelopment of this already fully developed property. The proposed plan does not provide adequate parking for the business, nor is its traffic flow safe and logical. Adding 2 additions onto this property will only increase vehicular traffic at this high traffic intersection, leading to further congestion and an increase in noise. The proposed overdevelopment also have a negative impact on the surrounding residential uses. The Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend disapproval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Antonucci. I'd like to ask a representative of our law department to please swear in those individuals that may wish to testify before the committee.
If there's anyone here to testify, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the statement you're about to give is true, complete, and accurate? If so, please say I do. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open up the public hearing and ask if there's anyone that wishes to come before us, and please provide for us your name and address. We'd appreciate that. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
William J. Roth, Jr., 3104 Chamberlain Road, Fairlawn, Ohio.
I'm here on behalf, short notice for myself, on behalf of the proponent. I've just heard the concerns that the City of Akron has expressed. I fully understand these type of concerns. I would at this time hear any other concerns there may be, and I would ask that this matter be tabled so we have the time to work with the City of Akron departments to see if there is a workable solution. My clients do want to reinvest in this area. They would like to expand their business, which I think is commendable. But having said that, I fully get the concerns, so I would ask for some time to see what we can work out for the mutual benefit of the City of Akron and also my client.
Thank you. Thank you. I will ask, is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of the proposed drive-through addition on East Archwood? Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak against? Anyone? Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing anyone here. With that, we'll close the public hearing portion and then open it up to any council representatives who may have questions or comments. Is there anyone with questions or comments at this time? Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing anyone. So therefore, we'll now move on to the next item, and of course, we'll invite you both back this evening at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item that's up for a public hearing is an ordinance authorizing a conditional use to construct a dental lab addition at 1575 Vernon Odom Boulevard, declaring an emergency. Mr. Antonucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Akron Family Dental Center is proposing to construct a small 35 feet by 20 foot, 700 square foot addition onto the rear northwest corner of this existing 6,300 square foot building. Construction materials will consist of painted cement masonry to match existing materials. Conditional use approval was granted by Akron City Council in 2021 for initial expansion of the structure. Petitioner states that the proposed addition is needed to expand into additional space for its denture manufacturing department. Due to the site's topography and location of a layer of mature trees, the small addition will not be visible from Vernon Boulevard and is well within the required setback. Property is well maintained, and the number of parking spaces exceeds code requirement by almost double. Petitioner anticipates hiring 4 additional employees. Akron Family Dental has been at this location for over 25 years and has been an asset to this Sherbondi Hill neighborhood. Office of Integrated Development, Planning Staff, and Planning Commission recommend approval subject to conditions. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Mr. Antonucci. We'll now ask a representative of our law department to please swear in anyone who wishes to speak before the committee today during public hearing.
If there's anyone wishing to speak, please raise your right hand.
Is there a Joe Presot here on our Zoom meeting?
Okay, very good. So we will now proceed with the public hearing portion, and we'll open it up and ask if there's anyone wishing to testify before the committee. Public hearing is open. In favor or against? Anyone wishing to speak in favor, against, or have any questions? Reference the conditional use request at 1575 Vernon Odom Boulevard. Anyone? Okay, we're not seeing anyone, so therefore we're going to close this public hearing portion and open it up to any council committee members that may have questions or comments. Questions or comments? Sir, you're muted, I think. Did you wish to testify? Okay, you're muted. We can't hear you. We can see you. We want to hear from you. We just couldn't hear.
You may be able to adjust your audio settings if you go to the bottom left-hand corner where your microphone is. He's saying no audio. Sir, would you like to call in with the call-in number? Can you give a thumbs up if you can hear us? Hopefully a prompt just came to your screen asking you to unmute.
Okay, I just got that.
Okay, very good. We'll keep the public hearing open, and we'll ask if you could please be sworn in from a representative from our law department. Thank you.
Sir, could you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the statement you're about to give is true, complete, and accurate?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, sir, if you could please provide for us your name and address, and we would be happy to hear from you. Thank you.
Sure. My name is Joe Presot, P-R-E-S-O-T. My address is 190 Ventura Circle, Brooklyn Heights, Ohio. I work for Craig Dixon Architects. We're the firm that did the drawings for the Akron Family Dental on Rhode Island Boulevard. And I just wanted to obviously speak in favor of it. The dental office has been there for quite a while, since the 90s. We put an addition on, almost identical to this one we're proposing about 2 years ago. The doctor's business is expanding with doing dentures and things of that nature. And when he put this addition on 2 years ago, he quickly realized that he needed to pretty much double the addition, which is what is in front of you right now today.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here wishing to speak in favor or against this proposal? On Vernotum? Anyone wishing to speak in favor or against? Hearing none. If you could stick around for a few minutes in case there's questions. And of course, we'll invite you back this evening at 7 o'clock if you'd like to attend. Again, we'll have the last public hearing, and we'll be making a recommendation to all of council in terms of either in favor, against, or to take time on this particular item. Thank you for attending. Is there any questions from any committee members or council members at this time? Questions or comments? Okay, very good. Thank you again for attending, and appreciate you being here in Akron, and thank you, and we'll see you perhaps tonight at 7 o'clock. We'll make a recommendation then. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. We'll now move on to the balance of the agenda, of which recommend time on 3 and 4, and 5, 6, and 7 are the JEDs that was introduced and discussed. Requested if there's any questions or comments from anyone in reference to this proposed JED agreement and the acquisition of 3445 South Main Street, as well as the agreement between the City of Akron and Coventry Township in reference to the joint development of this vacant land that this venture that Akron and Coventry Township is undertaking. The first item, though, is historic, whereas this was pretty much the first JED 28 years ago that occurred here in the state of Ohio between Akron and Coventry. That was the then mayor Donald Pasquale proposed the first JED, and this was it 28 years ago. And we're amending that and adding a second area within Coventry Township. The first agreement had a 92-8 split, with 92% of it going to Akron and 8% going to Coventry in terms of income tax collection. Any new area that's located within the second map is going to be a 50-50 split. And that's basically, in essence, the agreement between the city and Coventry on this joint economic development district. And last week I mentioned that we'd like to pass this week. And so is there any questions or comments from anyone just in reference to the JED agreement with Coventry? Any questions or comments? Is there a motion for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Very good, the ayes have it. The next ordinance is number 6 on our agenda, and this is to execute and deliver agreements and or documents in connection with the acquisition of 3445 South Main Street, which is a 66-acre parcel that we're going to be acquiring for $1.6 million, I believe, is the purchase price. This is situated in an area that's very developable, and hoping with this joint, which would be the next one, number 7, which is the agreement between Coventry and us in terms of development. So, but this one here is basically the acquisition thereof. Questions or comments? Is there a recommendation for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good, the ayes have it. And finally, the last one here is the, this is the agreement between Coventry Township and the City of Akron in reference to the, that 3445 South Main Street, and how this would move forward. And I believe it's 50-50. Am I correct, Mr. Angeloni, in terms of development moving forward?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Not only on the acquisition side, but the development as well, correct?
That's right. So if there are improvement costs that Akron would bear, those would be split with Coventry as well. They would be responsible for half those costs.
Cool, cool. Thank you. Any questions or comments reference to that? Okay, Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Angeloni, if for some reason the development wasn't to move forward, would there be like equitable distribution of any, sale price or something like that if the land was disposed of, or is that contemplated?
Yes. So the development agreement, when it's actually fleshed out fully, which the MOU is serving as the basis for that, it contemplates a 50-50 split of any proceeds from the sale. So when we sell it, if we sell it, half of that money will be distributed. Likely it will not be in excess of the cost to the city, so we don't anticipate really a profit, but if there were one, we would split that as well.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay, further questions or comments? Not seeing any. Is there a recommendation for suspension of the rules with a favorable report?
So moved.
Is there a second? All those in
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Against? Very good, the ayes have it. I'm going to recommend time on 8 through and including 15, of which 16 there is a substitute for this particular item, which is item number 1 on our new list of legislation. Could you please read that in, Clerk Viviano?
This is a substitute offered as an amendment offered by Mayor Horrigan. Ordinance amending and/or supplementing Title 11 Business Regulations, Chapter 111, Regulations concerning governing specific businesses of the City of Akron Code of Ordinances to enact Article 37, short-term rentals, to create procedures for the registration, regulation, fees, and enforcement of short-term rentals in the city and declaring an emergency.
Okay, thank you. This is a substitute. There's some changes to this, and before us, we have a cadre of attorneys from the administration who are become experts in this. Is there someone that would like to begin by just kind of briefly explaining the differences between the two, the original that's been on the agenda for a little while, and then the new one?
Sure, Chair, Mr. Chair. So we are substituting in part to ensure consistency with the zoning and housing codes. We also added definitions for clarity, also notice to the public. The application fee has changed, which I will point out to you distinctly. The reason we're doing that, and it's a higher application fee, is to ensure that we can cover the administration, public education, and enforcement of the law. So just upon discovery of the cost to the city. And then the last thing is that we added a lot of clarity around due process rights and enforcement.
Okay, very good. I'm not going to ask for a vote today, for sure. We want to give everyone an opportunity to delve into this. I know this affects every ward in the city, and that, oftentimes phone calls and concerns are brought forward. Is there any questions or comments at this time about this proposal? Oh, I do see a hand up, I believe. Representative Holland, Nancy Holland, is your hand up?
I'm sorry, that's my mouse.
Oh, that's your mouse. What's your mouse doing over there?
Let me move that. I don't want to confuse anyone.
That looks so much like, like your hand's up.
Actually, it wasn't up yet, but you must have read my mind.
Okay, all right, very good.
Thank you so
silly
much,
me.
Clerk Viviano and Chairman Fusco. Ms. Collins, since we have you here, I know that there are so many questions in the community about the reasoning behind these regulations and the timing as well. Would you be so kind as to give a little context for why this and why now?
Absolutely. So we have, this is an amendment to a proposal that we had put in I think, in July, if I recall. It's been some time. The reason that we are moving forward on it is, first of all, we want to ensure that this is a business that is regulated within the city. We certainly see the need to make sure that we are collecting tax, the bed tax on the business. But also, there's a proposal at the state level, House Bill 563, that seeks to interfere with home rule authority to regulate short-term rentals. Right now, the proposal is one that would prohibit cities from prohibiting short-term rentals and also controls the restrictions we would place on how often rentals could be rented out and for what periods of time. So we don't think that this would actually conflict with the current proposal in front of the House, but we also want to establish our home rule authority to regulate them.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. And if I may just ask a follow-up question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So importantly, this ordinance seeks to regulate a number of things that I would say, and I guess I'm looking for confirmation on this, bear on health, safety, well-being. Included within the ordinance are certain requirements of short-term rental providers in the form of adequacy of parking, compliance with various safety standards and requisite certification process, and a registry. Can you, I guess, elaborate a little bit how you see this actually functionally operating, Ms. Collins, going forward?
So the proposal is one that would require registration from short-term rental providers, and the parking provisions that you're talking about aren't any different. So it's not a change from our zoning code. The zoning code remains as is. If a conditional use is needed to operate a short-term rental to the degree that the provider seeks to do so, they still need to do that. But the registration certificate merely allows us to look at a site plan, ensure that there's adequate off-street parking for the number of people who would be staying, for example. But of course, you know, we still have guests of residences that often park on street, and we can't prohibit that, right? But we can ensure that the number of parking spaces is provided for the number of people who could potentially stay at the short-term rental. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
And again, I ask these questions for the benefit of our viewing audience primarily, but can you confirm that there exists already some measure of regulation on the operation of short-term rentals today, even before we pass this, that there are some existing curbs on short-term rental activity?
So I think that's correct. It's in the form of normal zoning and housing law. So those still need to be complied with. We're not seeking to in any way circumvent the existing law. Instead, we're also requiring a registration for short-term rentals, and that so there are safety provisions that are included in this law, things like ensuring that people have appropriate fire alert systems and that sort of thing in their short-term rental, but and there are operating requirements, which involve no nuisances, for example, which is currently in law, but also recognizes that short-term rentals may present special circumstances. So I don't think there's a change from existing law in terms of not allowing nuisances, not allowing any kind of criminal activity at any residence. But it allows us to revoke a certificate if those kinds of things pop up, so that a short-term rental could no longer be legally operated if a registration is revoked.
And that was my final question, the enforcement of this new ordinance.
Yeah, so not only did we include in this amendment some more specific provisions about enforcement so that everyone has notice of what's required and what could happen if they violate the law, but also a process for them to appeal if they see fit.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
Of course.
Okay, very good. Again, not going to ask for a vote today, but want everyone to please take a look-see, and I see. I know I still have questions, but Ms. Mosley?
Thank you. Just briefly on number 13, short-term rental means any residential dwelling unit or part of a residential dwelling unit offered or held out for rent for a duration of occupancy less than 30 days consecutive. So is this to seek to regulate Airbnbs? Is this what this legislation is for?
Airbnb is not the only potential host out there, host site out there, but yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Malik?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I just, kind of going off of Councilwoman Holland's comments, just want to say that I think this is a really thoughtful and constructive way of creating a system for a use that is going on in our city as it is right now. And I think in many cases people are operating very helpful, valuable parts of valuable businesses to people who are coming in and visiting, whether it's to visit friends and family, whether it's for an event. And I think, to this point, there hasn't been a clear way of creating this kind of structure and enforcement mechanism. The conditional use process is kind of a blunt instrument for that. But I think this will give us some great structure. And as I've mentioned, I think the key is going to be in the implementation and in just spreading awareness about the structure and making sure that we bring in people and let them know they need to get registered, I think, by the end of January, and that they're in full compliance, because we don't want to be onerous on these existing businesses that are operating without nuisance, but we also want to make sure we're collecting that tax and getting everybody on board. So thank you for putting all of this together, to all of you.
Thank you, Councilman. And I'll just say in response to that we do plan to have an educational period, so kind of a registration open period while we're educating the public, while we're seeking addresses that perhaps may be subject to this new law, and the registration period would go through January 31st of 2023.
And that's wonderful. And if there are materials that we as council could share with folks in our ward, we would appreciate that as well.
Absolutely. And if you'd like us to attend any ward meetings, we're happy to do that.
I'm putting in my request right now.
Okay.
The one question here, the short-term rental hosting platform obligation. I know the enforcement piece or whatever is going to be done by an entity beyond us. Is that true? Right? Or
Yes, ideally, so the registration fee was increased to make sure that we could engage with someone to do that, including digital registration.
Yeah.
And,
Perfect.
right.
And all of council needs to be able to access that. All of council needs to be able to, because whenever something does occur, we need to be able to, have that right at our fingertips.
Yeah, we found that from other cities that customer service is very, very important. So neighbors being able to contact someone to let them know that, something's awry is important. So we acknowledge that.
The transparency piece, and within here, are we also speaking to the possibility of like if there's an external owner or whatever, that they have to have a local management person to contact or somebody? Is that within this? I don't recall seeing
I'll let my colleague Brian Bremer speak to that, but both should be subject to this law, yes, if that's the question.
I apologize, I missed the beginning of the question, but there is a requirement in here that you do have a local operator that is able to respond within 45 minutes. That's in here. Like, that's a requirement that someone would have to have. And they're defined as like a responsible person, I believe is the definition. And the idea is that person has to be living or have a place of business within like Summit County or an adjoining county. That way it's just kind of, we're not trying to define where people live so much as just, make it practical that you can get here and respond if we need you to.
And I see here under definitions, you have a definition for a person and then a definition for a responsible person. I'd like to know the difference. No, I'm joking, just joking. But no, in all sincerity, no, this is very comprehensive, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, and you guys have done a great job putting this together. And I'd like to remind council as well that this can be amended from time to time, obviously. And so I'm sure as we go through this experience in this, it's not new, but kind of a new, way in terms of owning real estate and holding real estate and one of the property rights one would have. It's really evolved over the last several years, and it's become kind of a niche industry, if you will, for investors, and so this is good that we're doing it at this time. Further questions or comments? Hello, is that a mouse or is that okay? Representative Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hearing the details of exactly how the registry will work, I'm struck by how much of what will be implemented here could also benefit our long-term rental landscape, and just wanted to applaud the effort and the thought that went into this particular creation, and to also point to the potential. Currently, we have a landlord registry that is done manually on pieces of paper at a window in City Hall, and I think that the system as envisioned for the short-term rental is exactly the kind of modern and efficient and smart way of doing business, and I appreciate all the work that went into this. Thanks.
Councilwoman Holland, I'll mention to you that it is not lost on us that this very program could absolutely benefit long-term rental registration as well.
Thank you. Further questions or comments at this time? Okay, very good. I know I'll have more questions and requests, so please, we'll take time on this. And I would like to ask my colleagues to please take the time to review, make sure you have any questions or comments you could ask for me or one of the experts across the table here from us who's put a lot of time into this, and appreciate that. With that, no further questions. I'd like to entertain a motion that we adjourn. Thank you.
Our next committee of the day will be the Rules Committee. It will begin at 2 o'clock. Those committee members are Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik. Again, that's the Rules Committee, and it will begin at 2 o'clock. Thank you.